Do you know, actually, you can make your own yeast at home. Have you ever known that thing? So today we are talking about how to make your own yeast, or actually to say is that how to harvest or cultivate your own yeast at home. If you are on fermentation or if you are on baking, then you know what yeast is. Yeast is a type of fungi that if you are using baking, then it leavens the carbohydrate or especially flour that you have. And if you are on fermentation, like especially alcohol fermentation, like wine or making cider or mead, then uh, this is the element, this is the fungi or animal, we can say is type of animal that it converts sugar into or carbohydrate into alcohol. So today we talk about how to harvest your own yeast. If you go in the market, you get two different types of yeast. You buy it and you use it, but it's expensive also and it doesn't have a long lifespan. So how we make the yeast at home or how we cultivate it ourselves and how to take them for a longer life, how to save them. Let's start. There are more than 1500 types of yeast are known to human being on Earth. On our environment, there are many types of yeast, and there can be more, but we know about more than 1500 types, and all of them are not useful for us. Many can be poisonous or they can be infectious to us. Some of them, the scientists have used them to like create electricity or to make electricity. Some of them make fuel like ethanol, we use to have that one. And most of the thing, when you talk about yeast, we talk about either baking or fermenting. So for baking, there are different types of yeast they use. And we don't talk about yeast, about baking today. We're talking about the yeast for fermentation, especially talking about wine fermentation or mead or cider. So for that one, you can have your own yeast. I'm just beginning that one, how to get your own yeast. Yeasts are available in the environment freely. They are here. We cannot see they are very small and we cannot see by our naked eyes, but they are there. Like when you put the milk on some container overnight and the other day it changes into yogurt, like there are the lactobacillus, like the lactobacillus, they are yeast and they are useful, they have been useful for humankind. And for fermentation of the wine, fermentation of the cider or the mead, you can use these yeast. The yeast actually used for fermentation and baking, or that means the yeast useful for humankind, that is called Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So this whole group is called Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So among them, the yeast for wine fermentation can be obtained from the environment. If they are there, just you need to culture them, you need to harvest them. It's very easy to harvest, you can use it then. Like if you are fermenting grapes, you just make a juice or just squeeze them and let it ferment for some time, like 10 to 15 days maximum, then the alcohol would be there. Actually, the yeast in the environment, they come to your meat, sorry, come to your water or in juice and convert the sugar present there into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Yes, they do. But percentage of alcohol is not higher. Maybe maximum 5, 6 sometimes it will go. And there won't be like what you call the desired alcohol level higher and others. So you can have your own yeast culture and then teach them the active yeast and alcohol content will go high. Yeah, so that way we can do. The other thing is that you go in the market, buy commercially. There are different types for yeast for like red wine, white wine, or champagne, or rosé. So different types of sparkling wine. You get that one. But here we're talking about home brewing and we're talking about harvesting our own. So one way you put the juice, especially apple juice, not much all other juice, all other food contain yeast in itself, but grape they contain its yeast in itself in the outer peel. The same way is with apple. So for the apple cider, you no need to have yeast itself. Just let the apple juice to be fermented itself. Okay, that's the way. But if you like to get higher alcohol level and fast fermentation and tasty wine, then you need to have harvest the yeast. So we can harvest yeast normal. There are many methods, but simple two way. First, either by apple or by grapes. Let's talk about grapes first. So get some grape, like 250 grams or 500 grams, how much you need. Like 500 is good percentage or good what you call amount. Get them, make them either juice, not in blend, but just in juicer or just squeeze. They're very easy to squeeze. So you squeeze, use the some kind of cloth, especially like cheese cloth. Use that, and then you collect the juice, and that juice, let it to be fermented in itself. You can add some sugar, so some like 2 or 3 tablespoons of sugar, and then cover it with a balloon. Put that juice in the glass container. It's better with the glass container, not in the plastic one, or either you can have the copper container or stainless steel, but the best one and easy to accessible is the glass. So put it in the glass container. There can, like, it will be 200 ml or 300 ml, and on that juice put some 2 tablespoons of sugar, and cover it with balloon. If you have airlock, that's the best way. Most of the home brewer use airlock, but if you don't have, then balloon is easy and very good also. So let it be in the good temperature, like maximum 30 to 40, not much more than that, otherwise they'll die. 25 also is good one. So if the temperature is good and if there is sugar anywhere, then the yeast are always welcoming. They'll come and ferment it, start to ferment, because they get their food and then they leave there. So like 20, they may start after 24 hours, maybe 5-6 hours, and maybe sometime 2 or 3 days, and then you see the balloon growing. It will become bigger and bigger. That means the yeast has come there or has been active there. They are converting the sugar into alcohol and carbohydrate. Sorry, alcohol and carbon dioxide. Yeah, the carbohydrate into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So you have your yeast now. So you can let that fermentation for a longer time and then make that small batch of 200 ml or 300 ml into a wine, and you can taste and use the residue. Something remains in the bottom, on the bottom. So that has your yeast, one thing. Either you directly use that whole of the juice that is started fermentation and there has been active yeast onto the other batch of bigger batch of wine, like 5 liter, 10 liter, or much more. So you can use the yeast, you have the way. The same way can be done with the apple. Get some apple, get apple juice, squeeze them, or you can just cut into small pieces and use the same apple, like small pieces, put there some kind of jar or some kind of container made of glass and topped with a balloon. There you can add some water if you like, and then add a little bit more sugar, just double the sugar amount than in the apple juice, sorry, than in the grape juice, because grape contains more sugar and apple contains less, so more sugar and more active yeast would be there. So so these kind of things, like for the apple cider, it is better with the apple juice, and apple juice fermented or cultivated yeast, and it's good with all type of wine with the juice from the grapes. So you can use that on your own. So they're the living organism and you have it for lifelong. If you boil these things, then they'll die. If you freeze, they don't die. If you freeze on the freezer, they will be active and you have to feed them and they will be again active and working. But if you boil, if the temperature is too much high, like 40 plus, then they may die. And you can keep on your refrigerator normally, not in the freezer, but normally in the refrigerator, that kind of the mixture or the residue remaining from the fermentation, to use in your wine bags or cider or mead, and you can have your yeast for lifelong. But remember, they are living organisms, so you need to feed them, then only they'll be living with you, otherwise they'll die. So what you can do is that if you put in some container in the fridge, then give at least 1 tablespoon of sugar every week, so that they will be always living. If you are using, then that's fine. When you use, then you get them feed. That's they are alive, and then again collect it and use for other bags. But if you're not using, keeping them in the fridge for the longer time, then just feed them with sugar. That's good. And you can use as I said already, you can use the the yeast made commercially made yeast that you get in the market with different flavors. That's fine, but they don't have a long lifespan because they have been dried and there have been some sugar to feed them, so they can live maximum 1 year, or normally 6 months time this to 1 year. So after that, they finish the food that they have been given there. So you need to like, you cannot be they cannot be reliable. You cannot believe them that are active and you can use on your all kind of fermentation. But the yeast that we have cultivated, you can, if you feed them properly, you can use for all your life. And also, the bread yeast also can ferment, but don't use the bread yeast. It makes your supposed to be alcohol or supposed to be wine very very bad in taste. The thing is that the yeast need to be given food. So to give the food for the yeast, the baking yeast used for bread, that comes with different types of flour, maybe like wheat flour. Yeah, normally wheat flour. So what is there? There is yeast and flour. The yeast and the flour is mixed in some kind of dry or semi-dry or moist things, so that they live for a longer time, because they need food. They are alive, they are living organisms, so they need food. And that yeast coming with the flour is not good for our fermentation. Remember, that's the truth. It is not good with our wine fermentation. If you ferment the wine, like you have the juice, suppose you have the grape juice, okay, or you have some kind of berry juice, that's good, it tastes good. And if you ferment properly, that's fine. But if you mix the fruit juice with the wheat flour, how it tastes? The wheat flour gonna be like bad after some days. They're gonna be like rot inside, and the taste becomes very bad. It's awful. I tried once, and yeah, to know what it happens. I've heard several times, and I tried once. Oh my goodness, what happened? The batch of that wine turned out to be some kind of gasoline, like diesel. It's the flavor is like the diesel. So it's not good. And also it rots very faster. It goes bad very faster. So you see some black residue underneath. So don't use the bread yeast. It's not good for health. It's not good for fermentation and the taste and everything. So instead of using the bread yeast, you can harvest your own yeast and use it on your fermentation. So it's good. It's easy. So harvest your own yeast. Try to make a new batch. And if you are new a new person to ferment, if you are newbie, and it's good to harvest your own yeast, and it's very easy. And also, like if you are making some kind of mead, or if you are making some kind of cider, then you may not use some yeast that we have harvested, or just directly let it be ferment and there will be less than 5% alcohol in the cider. That's fine. So that way we can eat. So yeast is available, it's free, just you need to keep them, you need to feed them, and it will work for you.